Dear Abby Normals,
welcome to Deeply Disturbing Things,
the podcast.
I am Macy.
And I'm Naomi.
And I'm Sarah.
And we are three anxious counselors who like to talk about deeply disturbing things and kind of whatever we want.
Woo! I think I'm first today.
We're diving into the vortex. You are first today. And we're all equally important, though.
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah.
I like that.
But I'm still first.
You're definitely the center of the room.
So we're currently in the apocalypse right now. Become our Patreon if you want to know what that means. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to do a little bit of a light topic, and I kind of stumbled across this. As one does.
Sarcastic, being light, meaning it's very heavy.
It is heavy, yet light.
Oh.
I'm going to share with you about cow tipping.
Oh.
The disturbing power of an urban legend. Or is it?
So I grew up in Snohomish, which the high school there is dubbed Cow Pie High because there are a tremendous amount of cows there, and they leave cow pies that get all hard on the outside, but they're soft and gooey on the inside, so you don't want to step on them. And that's the cow tipping thing. Because I remember that being talked about a lot. Never done. Never heard.
I did not know that why it was called a cow pie, because it's like,
no, it literally looks like a pie, and
that's
it's
what I thought. Yeah, visual, but not like the consistency like a pie.
Oh yeah, no, it's gooey inside and warm.
Like, do you remember I shared a long time ago on the podcast my shame? I'm ashamed of this, but when I was in high school, I had a friend that was a little bit older, like early 20s, that would kind of just do whatever I wanted,
Matthew McConaughey, just hanging around the high school.
Well, he lived across from the high school. He had a pool. He could buy alcohol. He was like that guy. But he kind of would do whatever he wanted. And so my friend and I took him up to go find magic mushrooms, and we'd heard like they grow in cow pies. So we would find like mushrooms growing cow pies and make him like try them out to see if they were the right kind, but they like had cow shit on them.
You didn't watch it first?
No, I know. Probably did a little like.
Is that part of the like?
I never did that. I don't know.
And it just made him hurl, and I feel bad now. But at the time, I was like, "So are they the right kind? Come on, get through it."
Were they ever the right kind?
I don't remember. Maybe they were, and that's why I don't remember.
You guys didn't wash them off.
So you've heard of cow tipping?
Yes.
Have you heard of cow tipping?
Mm-hmm.
And what have you always thought about that?
I mean, it's not very nice to the animals to be going out.
So you thought it was a thing?
Pushing animals down, that's not nice.
I've seen it on TV in movies and things, but
fictional, right?
Fictional. I honestly just have a hard time imagining it being possible, but I don't know that.
When they're supposedly sleeping and you like push them and then they fall, or you yell at them and then they fall.
I mean, I come from pretty farmy backgrounds though for like some areas of my life. So to me, I've been around cows, and I've never seen it actually happen.
But it's always been a thing
that I've heard.
Yeah.
That's good.
I mean,
yeah. So the idea
I'm not cool enough to be invited for cow tipping. I don't know.
The idea is like you sneak up on a cow that's sleeping standing up, and you can push it over. That's like the whole cow tipping thing. So I, like you all, have always heard of it. Don't look it up.
I'm not. I'm taking a note of possible
titles.
No, well, yes, titles and things that I can say at the end if I have a little ting moment.
Okay, can't.
So
remember that?
No. Have you seen me once?
Okay. So I, like you, have always heard of it and thought it was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, it's not a thing. It's not real. Apparently, it's an urban legend. according to the experts.
I already forgot what it is.
Anyway.
Hmm.
So I was very confused by this because when I first started out on this topic, I was fully expecting to like talk about cow tipping, like people's adventures with it and like their experiences with it,
like when they
maybe how it went wrong.
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking.
And crushed them.
But what I kept finding was article upon article upon article about how it's not real, it's not possible. And I was just like, what? The power of an urban legend is it's powerful. That
pool on the roof of the high school.
So I was like, no. So I'm just diving deep. I'm like, I have to find proof this is real.
Yeah, I don't like
this. Has a lot to do with my topic. We're linked.
So, I'm always, I want a believer. And so when I, Google search this, of course, Wikipedia is like at the top. So I'm like, I'll see what Wikipedia has to say. And this Wikipedia article is hilarious. I have never...
Because people can contribute to it, right?
But it's usually very cut and dry. It's very serious. This thing is written like a comedian, a comedy writing team.
That's awesome.
Wrote it, yeah. Wow. So I'll share some of the photos and the captions, which I'm like, somebody is making fun of me, basically, and other people that think cow tipping is real. So studies have been conducted to determine if cow tipping is theoretically possible. And everybody agrees cows are large, right? They could be like 2,000 pounds. And everybody agrees that they're difficult to surprise. Everybody agrees that they would generally resist attempts to be tipped.
I would.
Yeah.
And estimates suggest that at least 4 and possibly as many as 14 adults would be required to achieve this. So,
because you're basically restraining an animal down to the ground.
Physicists have spent a lot of time breaking this down.
How much time?
A lot. There's graphs, there's formulas. I was impressed by the level of research that has gone into cow tipping.
How far have we gotten on the world hunger thing?
Well, I was glad to find this. Well, this was also a good reminder to me that entertainment is important and distractions are important. Like, you can't just be in the shit all the time. Like, you have to be in the cow. You have to laugh. You have to like see the levity of life. Even in the midst of hell,
For sure.
That's something that's why I've always identified with the show Shameless. I've always felt it was kind of like my family. Like, we'll fucking rally and like approach things with positivity no matter how bad it is.
I watch it and it's really triggering for me, and I'm like, this is because there's just things about it that I'm like, no.
When the whole family gets together, though, that I'm like, yes, I love that. When they all get together for that common cause, I feel like that's the White's family way. Like, we will fucking rally and we'll laugh in the middle of hardship. Like, we're a very happy family, actually. So it's really going to be difficult to find a non-reacting cow. Cows have very sensitive hearing.
They have big ears and they do this.
Yeah, and their noses are very big.
My sister had a cow named Copper, and Copper was adorable. I don't think you could sneak up on Copper. Then they ate Copper.
Remember we met those cows up at the meat place?
Yeah, they're you had that was like your spirit animal.
I felt a real connection with that one cow. Mm-hmm. And I felt like that cow had a real connection with me too. I feel like it was mutual.
Mm-hmm. And I felt it.
You were its spirit animal.
You felt that? Did you see us looking, eyes, gazing?
It just radiates.
We had an aura around us, a bubble.
Aww. Well, like with equine therapy and stuff, like that connection piece is like supposedly there.
Yeah. Yeah. And horses are very intelligent.
So
and attune to the human nature.
Sheep are stupid AF. Don't even get that twisted. But cows are pretty smart.
As the urban legend goes, because cows sleep standing up, it's possible to approach them and push them over. And it's mostly, drunk teens out in the middle of the night that go do these kind of things. And in the myth of this or the story, it's always the cow just tips over.
Yeah, and they're like stiff leg, like
it just tips over.
That's kind of how when you shared your story earlier and you shared about
flipping upside down.
Yeah, that's exactly. Maybe you got
maybe it's not good.
I mean, you thought you would be aware, and
yeah,
shit, never can prepare.
So I've always just kind of accepted that, and it wasn't until really diving into that I'm like, I never really put two and two together, like what happens like after you push the cow. I just assumed it would just go like tip over, like it's stiff and it just stays asleep.
But like its legs would have to break though.
But the more I thought about it, I'm like, that's like it would have to be sleeping really hard. And I guess that's what I always thought, like, wow, cows sleep really hard, really fucking hard.
Well, I was thinking
like they're not gonna wake up.
But like fight or flight or freeze mode. Like
I figured they would tip over and just still be sleeping there on the ground.
But like how would they ever protect themselves against anything in the wild if that literally like they go into a coma at nighttime? I'm sure the cougars would figure that out.
But how about you?
But we all thought this was a thing.
I mean,
But like deer in the headlight, deers will freeze. Deers will freeze.
Deer is a plural. It's like moose and meat.
Maybe die or
deer. They freeze in the face of fear. So that's what I was thinking was happening with the cow.
It's not like fear though. It's the light. It's the headlights.
Deer in the headlights,
right,
as the saying goes.
But it's
now I feel like I've tripped upon.
That's a whole other topic.
Well, no, yeah. Now I'm kidding. Am I just repeating another urban moment? Yeah. Like, is it because of the lights or is it because they're scared? I don't know.
Well, lights scare them though.
So let's say you are able to sneak up on a cow that they do sleep standing up, but they only sleep lightly. So they're going to be easily awakened. It's believed that this urban legend really blew up in the 80s because it was in lots of movies. Tommy Boy,
right.
Heathers.
That's kind of what Tommy Boy comes to mind.
And Heathers, they have the famous date scene where they go out there.
And the Cars cartoon, the Cars movie.
Beavis and Butthead. It's in like a lot of things. And so I really started thinking, wow, how gullible and impressionable we are. Just show us a couple fiction movies and we'll be like, oh, that's real. Mm-hmm. And you just accept it. Mm-hmm. So
gosh, man.
Stories about cow tipping tend to be secondhand, told by somebody who knows somebody else who has done it. So it's not even like them saying I did it. It's like, oh yeah, I've heard of
like I just said that. Like, yeah, I've heard other people talk about it.
Yeah.
And I've never seen it. Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, that to me is the most disturbing that part of this whole thing, that we just believe shit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's like the whole underlying message here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this Wikipedia article goes on, and it does explain, which I thought was really funny, that cattle may need to be deliberately tipped over, for certain types of husbandry practices or medical treatment. But when this is done for medical purposes, they use like a special table that like cinches the cow and like turns it on its side.
That's where it came from, though. Is that?
Well, I know, like
it's called casting.
Goats are similar thing, because you kind of have to like get them in a specific position to like bring legs out, and they do that. They do that leg position when you do that because they're supported, and then they go down slowly. Mm-hmm. Goat tipping, it's a thing. Have you ever the fainting goats? Those are fun.
Oh,
they do fall over.
Yeah, see, that's what I would think maybe is where the cow thing came
like people mistake cows for goats.
Maybe
the fainting cows.
So that's obviously different. Maybe. But the Wikipedia article put it in.
So you scare a goat and they really do go. Arr.
No, the fainting goats are completely real. Yeah, so I've seen those.
Here,
I've seen them.
Okay.
A crisscross applesauce.
Yeah.
I mean, but no one's pushing them.
Right.
It's like telephone now.
I don't think these people have seen Tommy Boy and are actually relating it to fainting goats. Like to me, that's like a specialty subcategory of knowledge.
I wouldn't go that far.
No?
No.
No?
Some people don't know a lot.
I mean, some people aren't goat barn grand champions, so it's fine.
Right. And animals just be animals. Being animals.
They bark, then yeah. Because they
So this Wikipedia article also talks about that. Like, we may intentionally do it for medical purposes, but that's completely different than cow tipping, as the urban legend goes. The Wikipedia article also says cows may inadvertently tip themselves. So, due to their bulk and relatively short legs, cattle can't roll over. So, those that lie down and roll to their sides with their feet pointing uphill may become stuck and unable to rise without assistance, which actually can be fatal.
I mean, I resonate. Sometimes I fall off the bed and I'm too close to the bed, and I'm like struggling for a second to figure out how to then get back up.
I have had beanbag incidents where I'm I'm never getting out of this fucking beanbag.
I had that one time I was in the skate bowl. I never got out of
there.
I mean, I did, but my soul stayed.
Your soul is still down in the bottom of that skate bowl.
No, I now have an anxiety disorder because of that one experience in my life.
So there are real documented cases of cows tipping themselves inadvertently. But again, this is different than the urban legend.
Autonomy.
This is cows tipping themselves, having a mishap, not being able to get
like, don't look at me. I'll figure this out or I'll die. That's kind of how I feel if I do something embarrassing like that in front of people. Just like walk away. If I die, this is how it's supposed to happen.
Yeah. Nothing to see here.
Yeah.
So trauma or illness may result in a cow unable to get back up if it falls. Such animals are sometimes called, make a guess.
Okay, wait.
Yeah, repeat that.
I feel like I want this set up more. Yeah, tell me.
So trauma or illness may sometimes result in a cow unable to get back up. So say it inadvertently went down. And such animals are sometimes called blank.
Hamburger?
Oh, good one.
Oh.
I liked that.
Downers. I don't know why I found that amusing.
I like hamburger better.
So these downers, if they're discovered and got back up to their feet, they'll have a good chance of recovery. It just made me think of Debbie Downers.
It makes me think of like maybe like wildebeest in that kind of
poor wildebeest. Every nature documentary, they're the ones getting
because you see them
surrounded in mold,
stumble and shit, and then the fucking lion comes out of nowhere and like rips their throat.
You always see the wildebeest pack running, and then there's the one that strays or falls behind. You're like, you're fucked.
And I'm like, don't look at me, it's fine. And they're like, I'm gonna eat you, hamburger. And I'm like, I'll get up in a moment. Go eat that baby, please. Wildebeest babies. We don't mess with nature. It happens. I'm sorry.
It's natural. It's nature.
It's nature for me to be a wildebeest.
So this is my favorite part of this Wikipedia article, which I found incredibly amusing. Dead cows may appear to have been tipped over, but this is actually the process of rigor mortis.
Right, because their legs are stiffened.
Which stiffens the muscles of the carcass. It is particularly noticeable in the limbs, which stick out straight. Post-mortem bloat also occurs.
Right, which makes
because of gas formation inside the body. The process may result in cattle carcasses that wind up on their back with all 4 feet in the air, and it has these lovely photos, which I thoroughly enjoyed.
I'll say I've seen one on the side of the road before, and yes, it does because the body gets so bloated.
It's like their legs are spread very wide.
Their tummies are so full.
I was like in my mind thinking it was more.
Okay, wait. Now I have another myth. I need they have multiple stomachs, right?
Oh yeah.
So multiple gas.
I think 4.
When they.
Yeah, how many stomachs? 4 stomachs.
I was gonna say 8, then I'm like, is
I
that
think
the length
4.
of a spider or the number of legs?
4 is my guess. If I was on
Octo 8.
Let's see.
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, I would pick 4.
I never call me. I'm so
I would
bad on
not.
the spot
Don't
for
worry.
anything. And if it's math, then don't be my friend after putting me on blast like that.
This article also included a couple photo evidence of cows sleeping laying down, just to show that.
Yeah, like they could just be sleeping. Horses lay down to sleep too.
But I love that it had a whole section on dead cows that may appear that they've been tipped over, but are actually dead and bloated.
Right. Well, and like how much are these high school or college aged kids actually going? And like, is it awake? I mean, they obviously don't care enough about the well-being to like, are you okay?
Would you guys like to know more about cow stomachs really quick?
Just how many?
There's 1. But it's split into 4 distinctly separate compartments.
That's what mine is too. Dessert, breakfast, second breakfast, and a mid-lunch dinner.
So when my sister went to UC Davis, it's an ag college. They famously, I don't know if they still do, but at that time they famously had a cow that had a transparent panel. So you could watch it eating and digesting all throughout the 4 stomachs.
Sure.
I mean, I'm sure PETA since then has had it shut down.
Have you seen that Black Mirror episode where they go in and it's like all the like oddities and stuff, and like I can imagine that being it's more of an oddity than a fair item. Yeah, it's kind of like when they have the big freezer. We've talked about that with the hanging children's pets.
Well, UC Davis is also the college that collabed with Elon Musk on the monkey brain implant thing. But that was recently.
That was recent. Monkeys.
My sister's all
macabre, right?
What?
Were they the macabre monkeys?
I think they were, yeah.
Macaws.
So I was like, I'm not accepting Wikipedia for an answer. I'm not taking this lying down with my legs open there. So I found this. So there's a Modern Farmer magazine.
Oh, yep, that makes sense.
Found in
farmers.com.
They still read magazines. They still read magazines.
Yeah. Hey, my ex gets Wheat Life delivered every month.
That's what you do when you got Wheat Life.
2013 article by Jake Swearigan, which is really good. And just provided some other details that I thought were interesting. It says, observe a group of cows laying down in a pasture, and you'll see that no 2 of them are pointing in the same direction. So they have a natural instinct for protecting the herd against many natural predators. So they'll be like all looking in different directions, which I thought was really cool.
Pioneer settlers with the wagons and they're putting
circle the wagon.
Is that a myth? I have no idea. I question everything I've ever been told now.
No, I think because I've seen some.
I've seen some sketches and some books.
Well, I've seen some oral tradition from the native community that describes those. So I think that was a thing.
Well, I'll take it. I'll take your word for it as third party because that's what we do.
Well, I think oral tradition should be respected as much as a written history.
No, I agree, but I haven't heard it. I'm taking your word for it, which is the third party aspect. But I trust you.
It's like take it.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
So this was just saying that they have an instinct for protecting the herd, and so they're not going to just all be standing there sleeping and let a bunch of drunken teenagers sneak up on them.
So that's the part I'm curious about, as you were just saying that. They won't let a bunch of... do the, like, bazookas come out? Like, how are these cows protecting themselves in these moments?
With the awareness.
They just start moving.
Oh, because they run.
Run.
I was imagining them attacking, but then
they go on defense.
No, the protection is that they would see a threat coming or sense a threat and then get up and get the fuck out.
Right.
Sound the move alarm.
So they have an incredibly well-developed sense of hearing and smell. So Popular Mechanics, which is a great magazine, did all this research on the physics of tipping a cow. Look at this wonderful graph.
Oh my gosh.
Like how you would hypotenuse and shit.
All I saw was a triangle and I was like, that's scientific AF.
So
errors.
It breaks down the
pathways.
amount of force
X's.
necessary to tip a cow, and estimated to be 1,360 newtons, which is how we measure force.
Someone does that. Yep.
Okay.
And so one 145-pound person can typically generate about 660 newtons of force. So at a very, very minimum, there would need to be 2 people. But this is assuming the cow is not resisting. So once you start to push on a cow, obviously it's going to take a derby stance. It's going to get wide. It's going to resist.
And they'll start moving. Like they'll just start rearranging their ass around, like stop.
Yes.
Moving.
So if you take that into consideration, that it's going to brace itself and resist, it's going to be more like 5 or 6 people of average strength. But some scientists estimate it could be as many as 14, depending on the cow.
And again, this is assuming the cow can't move forward and back. So, like, they're obviously going to try to do anything other than sideways.
Right. But then at that point, it's not my idea of cow tipping. And my idea, it was always just sleeping and it just fell over.
Yeah. Because what do we think was actually happening? That they just, they freeze and become light.
Well, like they're sleeping.
No, I just figured it was just a hard sleeper and it would just tip over.
Remember when you did the freezing? What's that called? Where you freeze the dead animal?
Cryogenics.
Cryogenics, where they're just like. I did say I was going to do that with the boo. I didn't, but because they are. Yeah, so
they freeze it so you can put it in a pose.
Maybe it's because
like an action pose or like a sleepy pose.
I mean, does this come out of Hollywood in the sense that, because I could see that a fake cow has stiff legs, and when you push it over, it does have that same it looks
a fake cow.
Yeah, it looks fake because you can't get a real cow to do that. Obviously,
I have to be dead or fake.
Well, I think fake. I don't think they used a dead cow.
Who?
Anybody.
In the movies?
Yeah, in the movies.
Portrayed this?
Oh, you're talking about the movies.
Yeah, well, because I'm thinking maybe that's where our mental image of them being all stiff and falling is because in movies they have to use fake cows.
And Heather's, I think what happens? I don't know if they actually show it. In Tommy Boy, I think the cows wake up and all start running.
I was about to say, and then I was the one that did the topic about the animals and how horrifyingly they could very well have used a dead cow. Just I don't know.
Yeah, the Hollywood animal.
Was when Bubble Boy had a dead cow on the side of the road that got hit, but not tipped. Hit, not tipped. Different.
So I had searched, and all the experts really said the same thing, that it's not possible. It's not a thing.
How are you feeling at this point in your research?
Well, I was like, no, I'm not going down without a fight.
You wanted
it. So you weren't like succeeding.
No, I'm taking it in. But I went to, my favorite source for information, YouTube. I'm like, there has got to be a video on here.
Looking for something to tell you otherwise.
Of some teens tipping a cow. Like, I can't have imagined this my whole life. There would be many, I pictured there'd be many videos.
Yeah.
Of teens tipping cows.
So the fact that there's not is
I went deep into the tube and there was not
if you can
find not a one. And that's
YouTube,
where it would be.
On YouTube, there are legit horrifying scarring memories in my brain of being a child and finding a random video of like a monkey jacking off a frog or jacking off with a frog. Yeah, no, and it's horrifying.
And I think it's sucking it off, actually.
No, I think there's multiple. I think there's a lot of versions of this that happen because it's pretty frequent. So, like animals, otters, horrible. Yeah. Anyways, I'm doing a lot of pointing. I don't know why. I'm just gonna put my hand in my pocket.
See, that doesn't bother me, so that's fine. You don't like it when people do that.
No, sorry.
So I really expected to find some shaky cam video of some drunk teens going out into a field laughing, like but they're really being loud.
The cow's butt because their cow has no idea.
Well, I wasn't expecting that.
Like fireworks.
I would not have watched that because that would have been animal abuse.
I mean, I think cow tipping would be animal abuse too.
Well,
if it was my cow and someone did that, I'd be really pissed.
But I think that it's probably not as lethal as putting explosives inside a cow's body.
Well, no, but if it shot out, in theory, in a comedy movie, it would work as fireworks and a propellant.
Right, but I was trying to find real video because I was trying to confirm my my belief that cow tipping is a thing.
Okay.
But I couldn't find anything. And
were you getting disappointed and frustrated?
I was like, unbelievable. I'm like, maybe it's not real.
Right, like, because everybody has.
But in a last ditch effort, I did a phone a friend.
Okay.
I mean, not a phone, but I asked my ex-husband, who's a farm boy, Dave. I asked him this morning, and then I said, have you ever heard of cow tipping? And he's like, oh yeah. And I go, is it real? He's like, oh yeah. Okay. And I said, have you ever done it yourself? I was like, no, but yeah, it was like the same thing.
Yeah.
No, but I've heard, other people doing it, and yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And I was so fascinated, so I'm like, I want to know more.
Did you tell him?
Like, he works with cows and stuff down there.
Farm culture, though, like, just from, again, being in that world, like, it's.
And so I was asking, it's like, no, it's totally real. He's like, but it would be rare. He said, if it's your cows and they're used to you, you would be able to get close to them. But he's like, if it's some strangers, no. But it's like your cows get used to you.
So he found specific details to somehow support why it would work.
Yeah. So I'm not willing to say it's 100% not real. I think it's
I am based
I think there's a possibility.
I think there needs to be a field trip.
I think there needs to be a possibility. Possible.
Test this theory.
I think you'd have to be super quiet.
No, it's not. I have been around cows a lot.
The cows would have to have stiff legs.
That doesn't.
And stay asleep.
We find it a dead cow.
A dead cow.
It would have to be a standing up dead cow.
Okay, I'll prop it up in advance with sticks, perhaps fireworks.
But really isn't it interesting though? We all thought it was real.
Right, absolutely.
And it's probably not real.
I don't think it's real.
Dang.
Now. Because I kind of didn't think it was real to begin with.
I thought it was a really mean thing to do, but now I'm actually disappointed that it's not.
So I want you to all this homework to just randomly ask people, say, hey,
they're all going to say yes. I'm going to tell you right now.
Hey, have you ever known anyone that's cow tipped or what do you know?
No, you should just say that. You should just say, don't ask a question. Just say, oh man, my neighbor was telling me about going cow tipping, and just give him a little bit and be like, have you ever seen that before? Oh no, but I've heard, let them build up the excitement.
Or just have you ever heard of cow tipping?
And then at the end, do we say it's not real?
No, you just keep that forever and you just hold that above their head mentally.
Just do a tally sheet. People that think it's real versus people that are like, that's not real right away.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we want to change majority opinion on this one. Often I do feel like that's important, that we help influence the world, but I feel like some drunk kids going out there and having some humility in the fact that they can't tip the cow is not necessarily a bad thing.
You don't need to be a dream crusher.
They're going to have a lot of
I'm not here to crush dreams.
And they're not going to be drunk and feel like they did it anyways. So
I crushed my own dreams.
You crush everyone.
That's how
I distinctly remember in high school people saying they were going out to go cow tipping. I distinctly remember that. What if I had gone with them? What were they actually doing?
I should have seen.
Maybe it's code for going to get drunk in the fields.
And maybe it was and maybe they were so drunk or on other things that they actually thought they did.
Or
it was one time and now everyone thought it was
so drunk that they failed, so they thought they messed up, and other people had been
right. You go home feeling like you're a failure.
Yeah.
So of course you're gonna say that it's just. Did you get laid? Oh yeah, definitely got laid that
So
night.
they just
Like,
hated us.
Why did
Like,
you sound like you were from Minnesota when you said
did
that?
I?
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Are there cows there? I think so.
No, you're oh yeah. I had a Minnesota accent.
I've been to Minnesota once.
Well, apparently you picked up the accent.
All right. Guess what I'm gonna
Good
talk
topic.
about?
I don't know. Thank you.
You should though.
Why should I?
I'm gonna talk about confirmation bias.
Oh, that's what I was just talking about.
I know. I know, that's what I'm like.
I
it's
literally
like,
said I was trying to confirm my
I
bias.
know, it was like rampant. I know I threw in a few plugs in there too. Yeah. So this has come up in a lot across a lot of our different topics. So it was one that I had on my mental list of like circle around to sort of things. And we learn about it in counseling, kind of in, I mean, you both nod, like, so what do you know about it?
Not much.
Okay, all right. It exists, maybe.
So we are going to see the things that confirm our beliefs, and we're going to ignore, often unconsciously, the things that don't confirm our beliefs.
Right.
Okay,
so people display bias when they select information that supports their viewpoints. So you have a specific worldview, and you're going to be looking from that lens that is specifically finding information that aligns with how you view the world. Regardless of what other information is there, you are cherry picking pieces, and often, again, like unknowingly. And many people in a lot of the studies, I'll talk about some of them, say that they are not doing that. Like they're very intentionally not doing that. And then they are. So it's
unaware.
Right, unaware, because this is part of what I in this research. First of all, there's actually way more research around this than I was expecting, and it is very tied to emotion because we are looking for a desired outcome. So there's a reason why. It's not just like just because, like, we have some internal reason that we may not even understand, and confirmation bias cannot be gotten rid of. It can't be eliminated. It can be managed. So you can be aware of it, and you can, or try to be, and maybe put in some like if I'm not sure about something, or I'm like, gosh, it seems like I really picked something that aligned, or like I had a big choice, maybe an ethical decision for a client. And like I felt really passionate about my choice. Passion is kind of your red flag. If you felt really passionate about it and you came to a decision quickly, maybe staff with someone else. Like I'd say, hey, Naomi, what do you think about this? Just to get different lenses. So happens in counseling a lot because, clients do, but we do it too as counselors.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's part of our wiring. But you can work against it once you become aware of it. So one thing that I sometimes try to do is if I feel myself having a snap judgment, I'll consciously try to find 3 pieces of evidence that's the opposite.
Which is what, so like when we were going into like research, like when I did the PhD program, they tell you to find a gap to do your research study on. So something that you don't have an answer for. But then you do have to create a hypothesis, something you believe about it. But then you have to create the null hypothesis, which is the exact opposite. And so you actually have to both look at research for why you're reasoning research and then why not your reasoning research. So confirmation bias, there are actually different types, which I didn't know some of these breakdowns myself. So maybe subtly, but not so specific. So there's attitude polarization, and this is when a disagreement becomes more extreme, even though the different parties are exposed to the same evidence. So we have the same evidence, but because I have a certain viewpoint on it, I'm going to then like go to even farther towards my opinion. And you're going to go even farther towards your opinion, even though the information in the middle is exactly the same. Okay. Then there's belief perseverance, and this is when the belief persists after the evidence is shown to be false.
Cow tipping.
Right. Because right here, like at the very end, like that was why I'm like, I'm going to choose not to believe it. That was why I said because you showed me enough evidence that I'm like, it's not true.
I just always have that little bit of a crack keeping my mind open to things because I know science has been shown to be wrong down the road.
I'll say 99%, 90, or maybe 94 even. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it not work.
But this is when people hold to their belief even once they've shown evidence.
Right.
You mean like flat earthers?
Right.
Yeah. Right. And people get really frustrated when they're trying to maybe argue with someone who's in a confirmation kind of cycle because you're like, why aren't you getting this? And we'll talk about this here in a little bit about the why part.
I never argue.
Some people well, this is about
complete waste of time.
Intelligence. It's not about intelligence. It has more to do with thinking about kind of rational decision making models and how the brain processes that information.
You say you don't argue, obviously within therapy sessions, but just in general,
I don't argue.
If there's
it's a complete waste of my fucking time.
I
have no desire to try to convince somebody of something.
Well, there's no.
If they want to listen to me, and I'll listen to them. But that's not an argument.
Well, and that's why it doesn't work.
I don't need to convince people.
Yeah, right. It doesn't work anyways because they already at this point. If they're already in this point,
it makes them hold stronger.
They already have all the information. Yeah, and all you're doing is creating that polarized effect, where they'll just kind of go even farther away, and you'll go farther away, and now you're not friends.
Yeah,
like that sort of thing.
I never argue.
And then there's the irrational primacy effect, which is a greater reliance on the information encountered early in a series. So this I found really interesting with the opinion that was held at the start, even if information changes by the end, is more likely to be the opinion that they hold at the end.
Say it again.
Okay. So if you're given a case study and you're told to make a decision about a moral judgment that was made in there, and you're like, okay, here's why I think this was a right choice. And then they add and give you additional information that actually gives more context, more information that maybe even pretty clearly lines out that it was wrong or could have been viewed as wrong. You're more likely to pick whatever opinion you had at the beginning than to change. Yeah. Than to change the stance based on new information.
Why is this?
Because this is where our brains have a big part to do with it. Our brains, that initial confirmation, we go, this is my decision. New information comes in. The brain hears that, but it's already decided. And so it would take a lot and a lot more on more of a, because it's not decision-making model-wise, that doesn't work. It's not, okay, I have to have the right pros and cons. It's not that anymore. It has to be an emotionally driven change based on their own values.
Think about how many times you've changed your mind about something. It's not easy. And probably more often you didn't change your mind.
Yeah.
Well, and if you think about the more emotion involved, the harder it is. So the first thing that came to my mind when I was reading about this was people who have been in domestic violence situations. For outside perspectives, leave.
Right.
Get out. Get help.
Yeah.
But when you're in it, it's the decision you made, whether logical fully by those steps or not, is the decision you made, and you are finding ways, your brain is finding ways to support that decision, even if information has changed. Okay. And I think that's an important, it's not just, I think people go to politics, the big thing that people fight about. Yeah. Right.
I'm thinking about UFOs and
and that totally comes up to a lot in this research. Absolutely. Yeah. That was a big part of the big part of it. right?
Sasquatch.
If I can't hit it with my car, it doesn't exist. Like it's got to be on the side of the road somewhere by now.
I learned that Sasquatch. I just learned this a couple days ago, which is really cool. Sasquatch is in the language of the Spokane tribe. So that word is known internationally, and it's a local term.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. I can't remember. We looked it up what it meant, and I can't remember now. But it's like big something. So that, or wild something. I can't remember.
That's really cool.
But it's a Salish word. Salish.
Cool.
And everybody knows that term.
And not Bigfoot.
It is spread pretty much everywhere, yeah. Then the last one is the illusory correlation. So like illusion correlation. Thank you.
Hard to grab.
And this is when people falsely perceive an association between two events or situations. So this is like that Nostradamus effect, where I have a belief and then I hear a thing and now I'm making a correlation between those things.
I always look for signs and symbols.
Right. So that's could be part of it, maybe not.
Well, I mean, I'm connecting things that aren't necessarily connected.
Right. So it's a correlation, right?
Like when I decided to move to Spokane or move to California versus Spokane, I literally based it on the next song that came on the radio. Whether I was going to go north or south. And the song told me south, and I moved back to California. It was a Led Zeppelin song. So
the perception was that somehow that like there was a greater force of being that would tell you.
Going to California with an aching in my heart.
So a lot
of the song. I mean, that's pretty like.
Look at you. Look at you confirmation biasing right now.
We are confirmation biasing.
There's something else at play here. I don't know.
All over the place. A lot of the experiments were done in the 1960s around bias, which I thought was pretty interesting. It was around that time frame where people are confirming their existing beliefs. Later work has been kind of reinterpreted in different research. Flawed decisions due to confirmation bias have been found in politics, organizations, financial, scientific contexts, medical industries, and it contributes to overconfidence in personal beliefs and can maintain or strengthen beliefs in the face of evidence, which goes against our "we love science" statement, right? Because that inductive reasoning again is not part of the process here. So this isn't that people aren't intelligent and that they can't do that. This is just not what's the process that's happening in the brain when people are in confirmation bias. A different mode is happening of processing. So a medical practitioner, for example, we know this. And actually I just wanted to kind of the DSM, we harp on it a lot.
I almost threw my phone across the room.
Just now?
Because you said DSM.
Right. So as I was like reading about this in depth, I have really even more bad feelings about the DSM because it is so
bad.
It literally surrounds itself around confirmation bias because you are specifically saying, here's a diagnosis. Here's the title, first of all. Here's the research we have gathered, which we have gathered by specific people that we have chosen with specific backgrounds and perspectives that we align with. And they have said this, that leads us to think these things are required in order to have this be true. So then as a counselor, you look at it and say, okay, I now am seeing this trait in this person based on the fact that I've been taught about this trait as being significant.
Oh yeah, 100%. You're looking for the criteria.
Right, versus like...
What are you missing because you're focused on that criteria?
Exactly. And
it's a deficits model.
And if we know, and there's research that supports this, don't throw more.
That wasn't as satisfying as I wanted it to be.
I know, there's the head.
It was too soft.
Maybe the doll head.
Papery.
The doll head.
The doll head.
Not the rock.
This is porcelain.
Is it? Oh, I didn't know it was porcelain.
It would shatter.
Oh no.
Do you want to scream into a pillow?
I don't.
Here, scream into
I don't want
pillow.
to break Johnny Nobody.
No. Scream into the pillow.
Oh, that never works for me.
How many bottoms touch this. Definitely mine.
No, but a lot of people like to pick at that thread.
Oh, that's
in anxiety.
That would give me anxiety watching them pick at that thread.
That's how you can tell that they have anxiety.
Right.
You don't need the DSM.
I don't need the DSM. Let's add a new criteria, thread picking.
Right. So we're literally teaching new counselors a model of confirmation bias. That's literally what it is. And that's what they're looking for. And if you're looking for it, you're going to find it. And research shows that counselors are more likely to diagnose based on their specialty. I am more likely to see OCD symptoms in folks because I've specialized in that. And it's true.
Overlap anyway.
Yeah, trauma. But even that statement, they sometimes overlap anyways. We say things like that to justify sometimes why we're leaning a direction versus another.
Well, it just shows how meaningless those symptoms are, if they could mean this or this or this or this.
Yeah, right. So like why then do they become this diagnosis that looks so concrete? But yet it could be any of these.
And I hate how much weight is put on the criteria and the diagnosis.
Yeah, no, these 4 things. When you reach these 4, but you only have 3? Nope.
Yeah, you don't get it.
No insurance coverage, no diagnosis, no counseling for you. I don't care if you can't get out of bed. It doesn't matter. You don't feel hopeless enough. You didn't say the right thing.
Yeah. Sorry, you only had 2 criteria.
Yeah. So you can see how there's issues even in our own field, even with assessments, there's bias. Wording can change everything, which is what I found in some of this research. That was pretty shocking. So there was a case where a study that they did, and they just described parent A in very neutral terms, was a kind of a moderate caregiver, provided basic needs, needs were met, very neutral terms were used.
Moderate caregiver? I don't even know what that means.
I don't know. I don't think they use that word. I'd have to pull it up. But they let's see if I can find that real quick.
Does that mean they weren't too doting or neglectful? They're kind of middle of the road.
I'll find
it. Very neutral caretaking approach.
Here it is. Okay, so here it is. Okay, so
I'm more of a smotherer.
It was a fictional. It was actually a fictional like child custody case that they used. So they changed a little bit of the wording. This was okay. So participants read that parent A was, quote, I think it's right, moderately suitable to be the guardian in multiple ways.
Suitable.
And that's all they said. Moderately suitable in multiple ways.
I feel like that's saying nothing in many different words.
Right.
I feel like they should be the caretaker.
Again, fictional here. Okay. And then parent B was reported as having a mix of salient positive and negative qualities. A close relationship with the child, but a job that would take them away for long periods of time. So the second one had some detail with a positive and a negative. Or at least according to
at least we know they're getting some good and some bad. The other one, I don't know what they're getting.
Right. Now this is where it gets weird. Okay. So when asked which parent should have custody of the child,
just based on those 2 sentences?
Yep. The majority of participants chose parent B. However, when asked which parent should be denied custody of the child, they chose parent B.
Interesting.
Right. Because
why?
Because implying that parent right. So they looked for negative when the question, it's about the question, how the question was worded. And the first one, the question is worded, which parent should have custody of the child? It's a positive. So they're looking for a positive statement. Parent B has a positive statement listed.
Oh, interesting.
The second one is who shouldn't get custody. They're looking for a negative statement.
The question was asked separately. It's different.
Yes.
Oh, that's what didn't make sense to me.
Right. So then parent B, though, like they have a negative also in there. So the brain is looking for that. Yeah. So really didn't have to do with anything about the information in it. it was just the positive and negative stickers. And the other one was
they're associating that.
Right.
Power of the labels and the
Language is powerful.
Right.
Words have power.
Yeah.
So I thought that was just like amazing and horrifying at the same time, because that exists. That totally exists in our legal system.
Yikes.
A lot of other studies have been done with this around diagnostic tests. So there was one test where participants rated another person on an introversion extroversion personality dimension, and then they got to choose interview questions from like a big long list. And what they found was that people who chose introvert on the scale for their client picked questions about introversion, so which presumed introversion. So for example, what do you find unpleasant about noisy parties? When the interviewee was described as extroverted, all the questions that were picked were presumed extroversion, such as, what would you do to liven up a dull party? So
who was picking the questions?
The whoever the provider or whatever was in here. So like,
it seemed like very leading the witness questions.
Yeah. Right. So like, because I view
especially that first one.
Right. Because I view you as extroverted, I'm going to just in my brain again is going to just subtly pick questions that lead me to ask you questions that make you sound extroverted. Because if I say, what would you do to liven up a party? You're going to tell me what you do to liven up a party. Introverted or extroverted, you're going to tell me that.
Even though it's an extrovert question.
Right.
This reminds me of, there was some study where a parent would go into the preschool, and if you go up to the teacher and say, oh, my child is so smart and so excited to be here and they always do their best, or maybe kindergarten, not preschool, but you kind of like feed them that this child is like special and great and smart, then the teacher ends up like giving them more attention and spending more time with them, which then makes the child actually live up to that potential. Whereas if you go in and say, oh yeah,
he's really struggling, yeah,
and then it says the teacher
that's what they're gonna say.
The kid is like not great.
Well, and this lines up a lot with what we've talked about with like police questioning too, because they are loaded questions in the sense that you are directing and guiding, like you said, they're leading, and there's no opportunity to say otherwise, because you don't actually know that what I'm saying by those questions is that you're an extrovert. There's no open-ended thing for you to be like, yeah, but I actually don't feel comfortable in those situations, because that's not the question I'm asking you. And so police can use these tactics sometimes to try to get specific answers out of people. And it's very powerful because socially you're wanting to comply, and you don't, again, you're going to answer.
I watch a lot of police interviews and it happens quite a lot.
Yeah. And it's not lying. It's not actually even like, it's not you falsely confessing to something, but you are admitting to be an extrovert. And if I'm trying to show that your extroversion somehow led to a crime because you're impulsive as a person, like, you're leading a jury to come to a conclusion about you as a person.
Yeah, I was gonna say lawyers, I'm sure, use this like on purpose.
Or remember the whole satanic panic topic.
Right.
The people that were using puppets and stuff to ask the kids if they're abused at the daycare, it was very leading.
Oh, yeah.
And it's little kids, so of course they're gonna just go along with whatever you're talking about.
Sure.
So there was a follow-up study that was done to this one that said, or that provided more neutral kind of diagnostic questions that were more open-ended. One of the examples was like, do you shy away from social interactions? Which gives some choice in how they answer. And actually most of the providers preferred those types of questions, and they would pick them.
Good providers.
If they're, it's just like, I think on a certain level, we understand when rationally that makes sense to do. But if those options aren't there, we're left to our own devices and we do what we have. And that may be the power of authority too. When you work at an agency, you use the assessments they give you. You may not question what's within it.
Question everything.
Yes. personality traits that interact or personality traits influence and interact with bias search processes, and this can vary in the ability to defend their attitudes from external attacks. So selective exposure occurs when individuals are searching for information that is consistent and can confirm their own beliefs. And this can take the form of an only watching like one news channel, for example, which happens all the time from everyone, most people. People generate and evaluate evidence and arguments that are biased towards their own beliefs and assumptions, and this heightened confidence. So what happens is over time, your confidence level just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So again, it's not that people are less intelligent who are jumping to these things. It is their confidence has been boosted because they have all this evidence to support their belief. And you coming once at them to say the contrary, you know, that's one thing here compared to all this information they've been gathering continuously.
And it's not even necessarily evidence. It could just be repetition. So the propaganda effect, where if you just hear something over and over, you're going to believe it.
Right. So another experiment gave participants a complex rule discovery task that involved moving objects simulated by a computer. Objects on the computer screen followed specific kind of laws for how it operated, and the participants had to figure out what laws those were. Participants could fire objects across the screen to test the hypothesis. Despite making many attempts over 10-hour sessions, none of the participants figured out the rules of the system. They typically attempted to confirm rather than falsify their hypothesis and were reluctant to consider alternatives, even after seeing with objective evidence that refuted their hypothesis. So they not only had the opportunity to test it for 10 hours, they then were given the evidence of why their position was wrong. And this study was similarly done with an article was given to a group of participants. They read it, got an idea about their belief system about it, and they were then given more information that said, actually, hey, you're wrong, but like, here's the facts. And then their response to that, so you think like you take in that information, process it, but they went right back to the original. And what they did was, it's very strategic what the brain is doing. It's very complicated. They went and found little pieces of information to justify their original thing, but by scrutinizing the actual facts given to them. So it'd be things like, well, this is not a long enough study to be able to justify that hypothesis. Or it'd be something like the number of participants cannot be generalized to larger groups of people. Like they would intellectualize based on something that might very well be true, even though the whole of the article is saying that they are wrong. They'll use that to then justify their rightness.
I used to be a real brat.
Are you identifying with some of this?
Yeah, and like I was in a whole place of like, I'm gonna find something that you are telling us that is not true. And so I would just sit in college classes and just be listening for that one thing.
Oh my gosh.
That I could challenge them on.
I have a quote here.
I was fucking ODD.
I pulled this quote, and that sounds so okay.
I mean, I had college professors describe me as obstinate, you know, because I was. I mean, that's what I was in class doing. I was literally just not listening to learn. I was listening for something that I could turn back on him and be like, actually, you know, or whatever. Or I have a concern with Michael. I was that student.
Michael Shermer said,
butthole.
Michael Shermer says, smart people believe weird things because they are skilled at defending beliefs they arrived at for non-smart reasons.
I was just being a butthole.
My husband does that.
Yeah, like you have a like a belief built on whatever, and then you are so skilled, smart, and intelligent that you have built up defenses along the way.
And my upbringing, anti-authority, anti-establishment. I mean, it just led me to those places
Yeah,
where
and
I'm
maybe
not going to just be spoon-fed some information.
Well,
I'm going to challenge you.
I agree.
Authority.
But I like this though.
That's how I'm against them.
That non-smart reason I don't agree with, because I do think some of this may be survival based, like a little bit more biologically driven of feeling threatened. And what if your value system is being threatened? Like,
Oh, yeah.
what does that
like
mean?
rolling over is not going to be the thing I'm going to do.
Right. And so it's not just about that.
But it's also cultural. I mean, my parents were hippies, they're advocates. Like, I was raised doing advocacy work, protesting. Like, it was just part of who I was, but I was also a little butthole also. I looking back, I'm like,
you're like, gosh, I was a little
poor
butthole.
teachers.
Yeah, like, I'm so sorry.
Sorry, Mrs.
I don't do that anymore. Now I have a completely different attitude when I go into most classes, where I have an empty teacup attitude, where I go with an empty teacup, because if you go thinking you know everything and your teacup is full, there's no room to learn anything. So for 90% of the learning opportunities I'm involved with now, I go in with a beginner's mindset.
I like it.
Or else I'm not going to learn anything. If you go in thinking you know everything, you're not going to learn anything. I mean, I have had the occasional teacher where I'm like,
you don't know.
I'm not.
Right.
I'm not down for this.
Well, and this is where the emotion part ties in too. They did a study with MRI scans and had people go in and make these decisions while their brains are being scanned. And one study found that as participants were evaluated with contradictory statements by their favored candidate, emotional centers of their brain were getting aroused. So they were getting emotionally activated by hearing someone that they liked saying something that countered. The experimenters inferred that the different responses to the statements were not due to passive reasoning errors. Sorry, I apologize. This did not happen by the statements of the other figures. So they had some candidates that they liked, some that they just they didn't like, or So, and only the ones that they had aligned with had emotional reactions to that. And the participants were actively reducing the cognitive dissonance induced by reading about their favorite candidates' irrational or hypocritical behavior. So their brain was actually allowing them to disconnect from the why it doesn't make logical sense. That urge to make logical sense of. Have you ever argued with someone ever? Yeah, and you're like, well, this, and this. Their brain is actually doing a process where it's permitting that to kind of skip a step if it's someone that they're in favor with or a thought that they're in line with. So it's just kind of going past that. And these bias are persistent regardless of intelligent level. Participants in experiments have taken, in most of these have taken an SAT test. They're trying to really show consistency that this is not about intelligence level. They all have fully informed. They're aware of what the studies look like. So this just is definitely, and it's not one group versus another group. It is all people have confirmation bias.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And it's not restricted to emotionally significant topics either. In another experiment, participants were told a story about a theft. They had to rate the evidential importance of statements arguing either for or against a particular character being responsible. When they hypothesized the character's guilt, they rated statements supporting that hypothesis as more important than the conflicting statements. So again, just supporting that decision. It's really interesting. I just actually fairly recently had a series of student interviews, and there's what's called a drawbridge scenario exercise. Have you ever heard of that? So it gives a scenario where this queen is married to, or baroness is married to the baron, and he says, I'm going to come back, but come back before this time frame or the drawbridge will be pulled up and you'll be killed. No one's allowed in. She thought she'd be back in time. She leaves to go meet up with her
Lover.
outside of town. Okay. They spend too much time loving.
Uh-oh.
And then she's like, oh no, I need help. I need to have someone. She goes up to the guard at the end of the gate, and he's like, if you try to cross this bridge, I will have to kill you. I've been ordered to kill you. So she goes back and she's like, there's a boatman who can take me across. The boatman says, well, I need money. Okay, she doesn't have money. So she goes back, she goes to the lover and says, this is life or death.
Lover, I need money.
Why doesn't she just stay with the lover?
Lover. Well, and she doesn't make that choice. She says, lover, I need money. And lover says, this has just been purely physical for me, and
I'm out.
I'm not getting involved in this. Right.
You're on your own.
Okay, so then she goes to a friend that's in town and says, I really need help. This is the situation. Can I
So she's trying to get some coin to cross the river.
Right. And then friend says, you really kind of built this scenario. I'm not going to contribute in this either. I'm not going to give you the money because you may have you cheated. You cheated on the Baron. You left. Like, you knew your choices. So
natural consequences.
So okay. So this is great. So then she goes. I don't
know what's happened before.
Right. So then she goes back to the bridge.
Maybe these are healthy boundaries for the friends.
She goes back to the bridge and the guardsman kills her. She dies. So the question that's posed to the students is rank in order who's the most responsible for who's the most responsible?
Fairness for being late. She should have been punctual.
She knew it was going to happen.
Yeah. 100%.
So someone who's been put in a system of structure where someone else is telling them how their life is going to look, whether they like it or not. Obviously, she didn't like that.
Yeah.
Is being given a life or death consequence for not following through.
I mean, if we're going to do a responsibility pie, I guess everybody can have a slice.
So basically this whole scenario weighs out into a whole ethical quandary of power and authority and how much weighting is given to different aspects, and the friend being that the concept of that liberal helper of I'll help. However, if I'm going to get harmed in any way, if I'm going to be held liable and you're involved, I don't want to be involved. I'm not going to help you. The boatman is just doing his job, don't give me the money, but is there no ethical responsibility there? What does that look like?
I had a situation like this when I was a teenager.
Did you?
Yeah.
Where
I really needed some help, but I had burned some fucking bridges and nobody was helping me. Aww. And I had to suffer some consequences, and I wanted to blame. Right. But at the end of the day, it's my fucking fault.
Agreed.
Yeah. I made all the choices that led to nobody wanting to help me. That was all me.
Mm-hmm. But we don't know fully the situation of Baroness with husband. So
she's in a crappy situation.
I mean, the thing is, first of all, the Baron is clearly willing to kill his wife if she
well, that's why she wanted the lover, because he was
lover. So there's that aspect of there's a power in the structure weighted to his favor in that way. So trust me, the most people rate him up there because he ordered it technically.
I think he's a nobody in this story.
Yeah, because that's just
he's on the other side of the drawbridge.
He's playing out the rules of
right, but yet he has so much power to end someone's life.
That's how it is. That's the way.
Right, and so what are
his hands are? I mean, physically clean. He didn't I mean, if it was a legal case, you hire an assassin. Yes, you're going to be.
So then, are you saying
where's the way?
Are you saying the gateman then, who actually killed her, is the one responsible?
No, because then he would have gotten killed.
Because he was told it was his job.
But I think you know,
He shouldn't have taken that
responsibility pie. Everyone's
Yeah.
going to have a
Okay, so the
slice of
executioner-
different
So we have executioners in the United States. Are they then the responsible party committing
They're
murder?
part of it. I mean, just following
It's
orders in the Hitler days,
I mean,
like those people
That's like
are
that. What's the
responsible.
experiment? The shock
Right.
room one. The shock.
So they're the
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
where
right,
they
right.
thought they were shocking the people, but they
Right.
weren't.
The authority told them to.
Yeah.
Stanford prison
It's
experiment.
not
So
my responsibility.
exactly. So very symbolic of systemic barriers, right? Of
Yeah.
those things. So, anyways, all of this to say that a lot of confirmation bias is also tied into our societal layerings of power and authority, and that our value systems are impacted by that and how we choose to take information in. Because it's really interesting to watch students process this. And then what happens,
It is a fun experiment.
we have them do it all individually and score their individual ratings. And then we say, now you all have to talk and create one. And then to watch that conversation happen
They all
of
start
them
fighting.
well, you see the people like they'll find one thing about what you said that related. Okay, I can bend on this because you stated this, and I agree with that part of it. And so they'll agree with it then.
Yeah.
So how people come to decision making is really
I've
interesting.
never really been a fan of thought experiments. Let's get out there and do it for reals.
Let's go get a drawbridge.
Let's get a fucking alligator. Let's get a moat, and then let's see how it really plays out in real life.
More moats. I like moats. Yeah.
I love moats.
All right. Well, until next time, we're gonna build a freaking moat.
Alligator-filled moat and see who gets to cross it.
And don't step in a cow pie.
And if you have
I have a good one.
a snap judgment, find 3 pieces of evidence to counter it.
Come to the classroom with your teacup empty.
Oh, Sarah.
I love that.
I love it too.
I'm taking it with me.
Take it with you in your empty teacup.
Take it with you and then confirm your biases.
Yeah, bye.